Good evening, and welcome to Conversations Around the Diocese, a program brought to you by We Are the Church. Please note that the views expressed here are solely those of the speakers and do not represent that of the Anglican Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Our conversation this evening will be facilitated by Monique Castle, a member of the Cathedral Church of St. Diego de la Vega, Spanish Town. Now, sit back, relax, join and enjoy the conversation. Remember that together we are the
church. Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Conversations Around the Diocese. Happy to see you all again, and it's good to be sitting here and sharing with you. So friends, welcome once again for those who are joining us. And for our conversation this evening, allow me to remind you of our aims for Conversations Around the Diocese. And it is to provide a forum for people to have open conversation around pertinent issues. It is also to help people to navigate the world from a theological and scripturally informed perspective and to guide people to prayer right. So for our conversation this evening, we are actually featuring and celebrating some stalwarts in ministry. In our recently concluded synod, several members of our clergy were acknowledged for their years of service. And for our conversation this evening, we will be speaking with two of these stalwarts and celebrating them in their ministry. Our guests this evening are the Venerable Winston Thomas, retired Archdeacon of the Mandeville Region, and the Sister Alvarene Roberts, affectionately known as Sister Jem. And so before we bring them into the conversation, of course, I will just give you a little introduction for each of our guests. So the Venerable Archdeacon Winston Michael Thomas recalls being called a madman. And this is something that I would really want to ask him about. He was called a madman when he left his job at Worthy Park Sugar Estate in Lloyders Vale. And he lives by the mantra still, money is not all, satisfaction in life matters. Now, Archdeacon Thomas has faithfully served the Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands since 1971, when he was ordained a deacon. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1972. He first served at the St. James Parish Church in Montego Bay as a curate, and following this, he was assigned to Holy Trinity Church in Grange Hill, where he resided for 20 years, and then moved on to St. Gabriel's Church in Maypen for 27 years. He served 13 years as rural dean in Clarendon and another 13 years as he was also Archdeacon for another 13 years and also administered the Mandeville Region for 10 more years. Sister Alvarene Roberts, affectionately known as Sister Jem, has been a committed evangelist and church worker since her teenage years in her home church of St. David's Yalos in St. Thomas. Now, Sister Jem, in September of 1989, entered the Church Army's Wilson Carlisle College of Evangelism in Southeast London, and she was the last member of our diocese to be trained at that institution. That's an interesting fact. Now, on her return to Jamaica after her studies, Sister Jem was employed in 1993 as chaplain at both Glenmuir High and Glenmuir Preparatory Schools. There, she taught religious education and she also offered guidance. She was also assigned to serve at the St. Gabriel's Church in Maypen, Clarendon, and she took the full charge of planting the mission in the Longville Park housing scheme, where she ran a vibrant Sunday school. So between Archdeacon Thomas and the Sister Jem, we have almost 80 years of ministry. What a dynamic duo. Guests, we join them in our conversation. So Archdeacon Thomas, how are you?
Thanks for having me.
It's so interesting to be calling you Archdeacon at this time, but we will let out the secret a little later in the conversation.
Yes, certainly I will do.
Yes, but Archdeacon Thomas, tell us, you were called a madman for leaving and entering ministry. So my question is, what led you to ministry?
Let me correct that. I left Water Park to Alcan, Yorton. Box like in those days, paid money.
Okay.
When I was leaving Alcan, Yorton, I told my boss I was leaving and where I was going to, and I told them. And when I was about leaving, after they didn't believe me when I told them first, and I was leaving now this month because I could not believe in that salary with prospects of increase and promotion and stuff to go 4 years later to be earning less than I was getting at Alcan. So I was quite impressed. I said to myself that, in life, money is not all. Satisfaction in what we're doing is what counts. So it's correct that I thought of it.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay. So what led you to ministry? Yes.
I grew up in a Christian home. Your grandparents were full-fledged members of St. Peter's, Lauderdale. I grew up with them. And my teacher, Edwin Williams, at primary school, and he was a catechist and the rector's warden at St. Peter's. And my father was a People's Church warden at St. Peter's. So I grew up in that setting, and church was for us a must. And so I see church as an integral part of my life. And so very early, from primary school days, I had a call to ministry. And that grew up with me right through primary school, through high school at Wilmers and Kingston College, until I went to work and then left work in the UTC for training as an ordained minister.
Okay. And it's interesting, though, Archdeacon, that having entered ministry in 1971, you stayed all these years because you retired just this year? Last year. Yes. Right. So what made you stay all this time?
Well, I have a commitment to what I do. And since I felt called by God to serve His church, I didn't see myself coming out until when I finished what I'd been called to do.
Yes.
So through thick and thin, whether it is frustrations or whatever it was, I felt myself committed to the task of serving the church.
Right. I liked that you spoke about, or you made a hint to the challenges, despite, you have a job to do, you had a job to do, and you decided to complete the task. And that is, I suppose that's a very valuable lesson, not just for clergy who are still in active ministry, but for those of us who are listening. So, Archdeacon, would you tell us now, how would you describe your spirituality?
Well, as I would say that there's always room for improvement in what we do. And so my spirituality wasn't probably the best it could be. I tried my best as far as I could.
That's a human answer. That's such a very human answer.
Yes. We always strive for improvement in whatever we do. Mm-hmm. As I go through life, I became more and more adept to the faith, to spirituality, and my teaching of people in church. I try to make my life be an example of what I try to teach.
Very good, very good. And so how do you, in terms of growing spiritually, how do you see yourself growing spiritually? How was the growth for you? Because you say you grew up in a Christian home, church was a must, and then you left what we would call the private sector, Longville Park, Alcan, and then you went into ministry. How would you describe your spiritual growth?
Well, the spiritual growth starts with you being involved in most programs in the church and doing the different aspects of youth work. For example, young people in those days, AYPF, the junior choir at St. Luke's Crossroads and the Sunday school. And yes, it's AYF and the junior choir, and grew up with church and, be involved in whatever church was doing. And aided by those who were my clergy support. Those clergy in St. Peter's Church who met me along the road. As you grow up in church, that you have to maintain a certain level of spirituality to maintain what you are about to do. You grow up with the Bible as your companion, your prayer book, of course, and those who help along the road, and their devotional life and stuff like that.
Okay. And as you talk about your devotion and your spiritual life, can you share what are some of the things that you do to stay grounded in the faith? Or what are some of the things that you did?
Well, apart from prayer, your devotion, and attendance at church and Sunday school and AYF, keep knowing that you are committed in terms of you have a Bible study, of course. You find yourself involved in helping other people, because by helping other people, you sort of ground yourself in your spirituality. Because spirituality cannot be for yourself alone. You have to be able to be attracting others around you who will support you and become your mentors and your mentees. Because you can be a mentor and a mentee, those who you are training and those whom you are following. And you're in the midst and you keep a balance, between them.
Did you have a mentor? Who's your mentor?
Several have, like Bishop Murray, blessed memory. I have King, who were my rectors at St. Peter's, Lauderdale. Of course, Archdeacon Maxwell, who in later years, who had the road well in college. And after college, I saw him as one on whom I could depend for guidance and support.
Okay. So I want to ask you now, having been involved in ministry, and we know that working with church folk can be very taxing, very trying, good, and having been at Holy Trinity in Grange Hill, then moving to St. Gabriel's until you started serving the entire Mandeville Region, what were some of the challenges? What were some of the challenges that you experienced as a minister?
You find some people will make promises, do things, and when it comes to the crunch, they don't live a straw. At Word Park, that my boss said to me, Winston, if you want something done, do it yourself. And so I developed from those days an attitude where I always see myself doing things, despite whom I might ask for help. I put myself in a position that it is done, because whatever I tell you to do, I can do myself. So you're only assistant to me, and not somebody who I say, if you don't do it, it can't be done. So the frustration is that when you give people a task and it's not done on time, you're left now to finish a task to meet certain deadlines.
Yes. And knowing you, Archdeacon, you're a man of deadline and a man of time. So when things are to be done, they get done. Friends, let me just pause here to remind you that you can put your comments and your questions on our YouTube link that we have to share. So if you have any comments that you want to put into the space for either Archdeacon Thomas or for Sister Jem, who will be coming up, please feel free to do so, as well as your questions, and we will have them for you. And we also welcome our technician, Lorenzo, who is also working on that. Okay, so Uncle, oh gosh, Archdeacon.
I can't remember. You're my niece. I'm your uncle. Not a far way to learn.
I know. So I think I let out the secret earlier than I had planned. Oh my goodness gracious. So Archdeacon, having retired last year, how are you feeling about retirement?
Well, I'm happy that I was able to fulfill the responsibility of being a priest for 50 years and a court of journey to help a long number of people along the road. Persons who will call me to remind me that I help them in their infant stage and where they reach in life because of my assistance. And I feel thankful to God that I was able to, under His guidance, to be able to help people in that way.
Right. So you find that you're keeping busy during retirement. What is it that
Well,
you're
I'm
doing?
very busy now because I still do some time elsewhere, which can keep me busy like 3 days a week. You know, I'm sitting down doing nothing.
Very good. And so your advice to those who are near retirement and those who have it to look forward to even in the next few years, what's your advice to them on preparing for retirement?
My advice to people in the ministry is that you don't wait until a year for retirement before beginning to prepare for retirement from, I would say in business, from start working. You can tell what will happen to you in life. So start the process of preparing for retirement from early. And of course, in the church where we live in a rectory, we make sure that when we get to that stage, we have somewhere to go to live our lives and not in the church for continued maintenance of us. Ourselves and our families for that.
Oh, so your advice would be for them to start building that nest egg. So
Yes, exactly.
upon retirement, the transition
It's not traumatic.
It's right. It's not traumatic in that respect, right? But then there's another respect. Are you happy with retirement? Are you happy being retired now?
I'm very happy. Yes, I'm very happy that I served. I came out without any great scars and I'm able to continue serving, where I can. It's really a sort of pleasure you have that you can still serve people even though you are not actively involved in work.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
People come to me for advice. And I freely give. Once they ask, I'm willing to give up my knowledge freely to those who ask for it.
Okay. All right. And in addition, based on that now, Archdeacon, we are going to bring in our another stalwart, Sister Jem. Hi, Sister Jem. Sister Jem, you have to unmute. Right. You have to unmute.
Yes, I'm saying good evening, Lady Monique.
Hi, Sister Jem. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Great. And welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Right, friends, Sister Jem and I were talking just before we officially began, and I was telling her, based on the moves that I saw her doing at St. Gabriel's one Sunday morning, I don't think she's aging very fast. So, Sister Jem, let me start with, well, first let me ask you though, what led to your joining the ministry?
Okay, I am from St. Thomas, Yala St. David's Church. And like Father Thomas, I grew up in the church. At the age of 16, I was a Sunday school teacher.
What?
Yes,
I was in denial at that time. I was still in Sunday school at that age.
I actually was the superintendent of the Sunday school. And I guess it happened because we had a vibrant AYPA group. I was also the president.
Okay.
And my challenge really came is that we had a priest he lived in Trinityville because that was, as it were, the rectory was.
Okay. Who was that priest?
He was Javan my priest that prepared me for confirmation was our deceased Venerable Egbert Robertson.
Okay.
He was my priest. And when he left, he prepared me and others a confirmation. But he left before the confirmation because it should have been Bishop Gibson who was to come to do the confirmation, and he got ill. So it didn't take place that December. It was the following year. Anyway, after Reverend Robertson left, we had a period when we had nobody as a priest. And we were really young people who were really enthused about church. And so I said to fellow young persons, because most of the other people were elderly, that we need to be doing something. And I remembered we were told about a priest in Rural Hill. He was Donald Lutus. And we never preached or anything. So we went to Rural Hill because one of our members went to Mark Bay High School with him. And we asked him if he could help us along. So we had a couple of retreats.
So wait, Sister Jem, so you're saying that the young people of the church took the initiative to leave from Yallas and go to Rural Hill.
Yes, I had a conversation. And you know, he came to Yallas, and one of our older members kept him for a week, and we had a week of mission. And this was after I was confirmed. To tell you the truth, I was sent to confirmation class. I was not asked if I wanted to be confirmed. I was sent to confirmation classes. And believe you me, I tell you honestly, firstly, I was the most angry person. I got the teaching and everything, you know, but guess what? You know, young people, I wanted my white dress to be made a special way. It wasn't made that way. And so I sort of hopped out of church when I could. But somehow, because we were just left on our own, and there were other churches that were near to us who said, we're not Christians and whatever. So I said, yeah, I'm going to show you. And again, I don't know, you would know Monique, you wasn't born in those times. There was a group that met at Kingston Sheraton Hotel. They call themselves the Charismatic Movement. And a few of us went on a Saturday. And one Saturday when I went there was quite a lot of young people just came around us and put their hand on our back and said, fall on the ground, speak in tongues. And Jem wouldn't open my mouth and say, let me say, me speak in tongues? You going to tell me to speak what? And we stopped going. And we decided then that we are going to stay in our church. And believe it or not, every Saturday morning, we went to our church and we had a prayer meeting. And there was this one faithful senior member who came with us, and she stayed with us. So that was my real beginning of understanding what being a Christian is about.
Right.
Yes. And so I am a trained teacher. And then when I finished my course and came back home, I realized that we needed to do more still in church because there were older folks in church. We were the ones who were young. And so I started to go, I'm part of National Council. I remember when we used to meet over Deaconess House with Deaconess Jean Forbes, and we used to have meetings like that. I was part of National Council with persons like Constantine Garrell. He came back from America then, Calvin McIntyre, persons like those. And I went to synod pretty early. The first synod I went to as a youth rep was in Montego Bay. I think it was at Sam Sharp College. And I remember how touched I was when all of us as young people gathered and we had our own discussion about what we think church would be like and all of that. And then I started to do vacation Bible school because I think Bishop Daniel at one time was youth director. And I remember him coming to St. Thomas and having meetings and all that sort of things. And then I went on to a place in St. Catherine. I think the gentleman that came for me was one Mr. Teng, a shiny person. And I stayed at a member's house and I did vacation Bible school. And all of that just somehow said to me that this is where you need to be. And so I went and spoke to Bishop D'Souza. Oh, we had a crusade with Captain Cousins coming to our church. And that kind of sealed it for me. And anyway, I went, I had a conversation with Sister Norma, because then she became youth director, and I was going here, I was going there in the summer months to lead vacation Bible school. And so I told her that I felt like I want to go into ministry. And I guess because Desmond Titus was a church army captain, Whitson Williams, all those people, somehow I felt pulled in that direction. So I went and had a conversation with Bishop D'Souza, Captain Cousins' sister Norma. And Bishop D'Souza said to me that he's kind of wary because most of the persons whom he sent to England to be trained as church army officer, some of them did not come back, or if they come back, they went back to England. So I said, Bishop, not me. I've been to England already and I don't want to live there. Anyway, I was sent to England for training, the last person. And I was the only Black student in my year. And I was a bit cautious. And so I somehow kept to myself. Yeah, because I remember that when I went out, you get a bursary and that sort of thing, but you had to go to the bank. I remember one day an Englishman saw me and said, "What a Black woman do?" Not in that language. And so, what you doing here? Go back to your country. And me, little mischievous, me just stick out my tongue. You know, I went about my merry way. But anyway, what was good about college is that we were broken up in groups, although you did all the other subjects, New Testament, Old Testament, everything. But we had a tutor who was responsible for X amount of us. I was the only lady in that group, but I loved my tutor. He was an Anglican priest, and his name was Doug. We call him Doug. You don't call, not him the dean, you call by a surname. She was Stella. She was Stella Noons, so everybody you call her Stella. And so I went for 2 years because I was more a mature person. But then when I went, I somehow felt that no, I want to do the 3-year course. And I remember writing to Bishop to say, Bishop, I said I would do the 2-year course, but I feel that I want to myself to this, because a 2-year course would just give me the opportunity of continuing teaching and then just do Sunday duties. But I felt that I needed to be a full-time church army officer. And part of that came about because we had a one-day placement where you would be sent to the prison, you would be sent to an old people's home, you would be sent to people who need help to do a placement, a day placement. And all of that said to me that this is where I want to be. And on top of that, at the end, my first year, I went there like coming into autumn. The college was moving to Sheffield. So they had groups of persons going to Sheffield for a weekend mission. And that also, when I saw the need and all of that, and I said, this is what I really feel that God is calling me to. And so when Bishop wrote back and said, no, I tell you already, so many people don't want to come back.
Yes.
And my friends and we went to the chapel, because we had a chapel at the college. And we spent hours just in there praying and so on. And the next thing, Bishop wrote back and said, okay, you know. And so I spent my first year in training in Blackheath, and then the following year we moved to Sheffield. And in autumn, I was sent to Brighton on a 6 weeks placement with one Canon David Payne. He worked in Africa, but he's English. And I lived at a member's house for the 6 weeks, but every day I would be in the parish. I had to do evening prayer. I had to go to, they had a thing that they call coffee break, where we open on the roadside and persons passing by would come. If they can afford the coffee, we sell it to them. If not, we just give them. And it's just a way of meeting and talking with people, you know, telling them about God, finding what is their situation, that sort of way, pointing them to shelter. I remember we had to go to Hyde Park. And when you go to Hyde Park, you have to go and you carry a milk box, and you have to stand up and you have to share. It wasn't a pleasant occasion because it would spit on you.
Oh Lord, what a spiritual adventure, Sister Jem.
All they were doing to see if you have the guts to really do ministry. Nobody sat on me though, but them say, what is a black up? Then not that language, you know, but yes, on my box. Yes. And I shared my testimony.
And you shared your testimony.
And I shared my testimony. Didn't care about them, you know. Because batchmates, you know, they are cheering me on. So the training did me good.
Yes.
And because of that, I remember that we had to go on a retreat every year. The first year, it was led because we're just coming in. But after that, they provided you with a bursary so that you go on a retreat. Yourself, you know. And so that for me helped me also to recognize that this is what I really want to do. And it was a silent retreat. If you had a difficulty and if you wanted to speak to somebody, the persons there you would make an appointment and you would see them.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So Sister Jem, that just sounds like a whole spiritual adventure. And from what I'm seeing, the indications that I have is that our social media correspondent, Father Garfield, has some comments already coming into this space, and also some questions. So let's invite Father Garfield. Hi, Father Garfield.
Hi, Monique. It's very good
Oh,
to be back,
yes,
sharing
it's
with
great
you
to
and
have
sharing
you.
this space with
Yes,
you.
yes,
And
and
to be,
you're senior forerunners.
yes, and to listen to Archdeacon and Sister Jem. I was very much caught up in their stories. It's always wonderful to hear the journey of senior ministers in the gospel. And the people on YouTube also have been enjoying the conversation and listening to these two stalwarts. Uh, I will start with comments from Mars Abel Smith from St. Luke's Sanguinity. Uh, Probably somebody who they're both familiar with. And it says Archdeacon took the Frankfield cure under his wings, and St. Luke's will be eternally grateful for his unstinting assistance. And he also says Sister Jem has been patient, selfless, and dedicated. Father Sean says thanks to Sister Jem for being open to God's anointing on her life, to the glory of God and for the service of humanity. Uh, Judith Spencer Jarrett says that Sister Jem, you have been recalling events similar to my journey. Only difference I did not go in the church army. This has brought back so many memories of my faith journey. And Millicent Castle and Isabel Gordon sending congratulations to Archdeacon and Sister Jem. That name must sound familiar to Monique Castle. Uh,
Yes, it
Archdeacon,
does.
you spent many years, question for Archdeacon, as a priest and working on many boards and councils and so on for the diocese, and of course serving as Secretary of Synod for many years, and serving very, very, very well. And I noticed you said that you're willing to offer your advice and so on to younger clergy and anybody who needs it, free of charge. And we know your expertise in the understanding of the canons and the administration of the church that is renowned and legendary. So some of us will definitely be coming to you. But you also trained um, a number of young clergy who are now working in this diocese and
Mhm.
serving in their own right. What was that like, having to interact with curates and training curates and to see them go off and take on their own parishes? Can you just share with us what that experience was like for you?
Excellent question.
It was challenging in some stages and fulfilling. When I see them come to me, young, green from college, 3 years in some instances, some 2, and I've gone out and gotten feedback that they are doing very well. It makes my heart, grows. That I have been a part of their development, their formation into good pastors in the churches. I've always, once they have come to me, anything I do in administration, I make them be a part of it. Because if you're in the church, you can't administrate church well, you are going to run a ship that is going to one day against the rocks. So you must be able to do your work of pastoral and administrative, twofold thing, which go hand in hand.
And that is another question, Archdeacon. How did you manage to balance and to juggle uh, all the administrative work that you have done for the diocese? We're not even talking about the administrative work for Maypen, which you handled beautifully, but for the diocese, and still able to balance uh, keeping a parish going strong for so
Mhm,
many years.
mhm.
How did you
The main thing,
balance all of that?
to have good time management skills. If you say you're going to a place at 8 o'clock, it's not 8:05, 8 o'clock. I remember I leave Maypen to go to a place like Southfield. Leave at 6:30 in the morning and get to Southfield by 8:30. And I work the day through until 5 o'clock in the evening and get back home. And even time you do your night work Also work done in daytime, but your administration done in the evening time at your desk when you are alone, you know. So you have to manage your time very carefully and very well. You can't tell a person come at 10 and you reach at 11 o'clock. That doesn't work at all.
Thank you for that. And before I turn over back to you, Monique, a question for Sister Jem, who worked as chaplain with young people at Glenmuir, and you must have seen many who have grown and become quite successful and hopefully fruitful citizens of this country.
Yes.
What is that like to have so many of them pass through your hands, and how did they impact your own life and ministry?
To tell you the truth, it had its challenges, but one of the things I learned at college, and I did a counseling course as well, is that however bad a person is, you have to find a way to meet that student where they are. And so I had an office of sorts where sometimes I will see students walking in the compound, and sometimes they are doing things that are not very nice. And what I do, I go and say, come see me, you know, and I will take them to my office and we will have a chat. And most time you find out that those students are students who actually are having a difficult time at home based on the circumstances under which they live. I have visited students because as a chaplain, you have to visit homes. You know, I remember going with one of the guidance counselors, she has retired now, to a home out of Old Harbor. Why? Because the daughter, she got pregnant and she didn't know how to tell her mother. And the counselor then was the Juanita Campbell, and she said, you come with me, Sister Jem. And we went to the mother and we sat her down and talked. And you know, it was quite different. The child was at home, it was quite different just because she came to us and we said, okay, and she said she can't tell her mother. All right, you know, you have students at school who sometimes are needy.
Yes.
And nobody would know because I would somehow call that student and give some kind of help. I remember, I don't know, many persons know that I am a breast cancer survivor. And I remember when I did my first surgery, there were members of the church who would really give me fruits and all sorts. And it was just too much for me. And because I know some of those students, nobody knows, I'm just saying, you know, I would ensure that students who I know were in need got something to take home. You know, when I went back to school, when all my hair went, and they were asking, the sixth formers were asking their teacher what happened, she sent them to me. And when I was able to be open and talk with them, then they began to share with me that members in their own family are like that, you know. So for them, it was an encouragement. It was a way of helping them. Today, when I walk on the street and students will say to me, Sister Jem, and I said, you go to Glenmuir, Sister Jem, you don't remember me? So I jokingly say, let me tell you something. I remember the very, 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 very bad ones. I remember
Spoken like a true teacher, Sister Jem.
very good ones.
Spoken like a true teacher.
You know, and they laugh, and they laugh. And so one boy said to me when I went to get my booster, he said, Sister Jem, let me a pen. He said, you know me? Sister Jem, you don't remember me? Every day me used to come in for your office. You don't remember me? You know, so it really was good I didn't go to Glenmuir as a teacher, as a chaplain, but when teachers were, and I did religious education with the second forms, all 5 classes. And so I taught them religious education. And so they remember me. They didn't like when I sing hymns at devotion. You know, they want to sing just choruses, but I said, no, when they're coming in, we're going to sing the chorus, but we're going to sing a hymn. And they did a book, a magazine. And I'll never forget this one boy, he's away now, and he said, every day we have to sing Shine, Jesus Shine. That is what he wrote in the magazine, you know. And so another day I went to the bank and I saw a student, and she said, Sister Jem, you remember when you give me detention? I said, me give you detention? Yes, Sister Jem. I said, did you deserve it? She said, yes, Sister Jem. Yes. You know, so all of those things say that even though you kind of be firm, you have children who know as adults, realize what you are doing, help them along the way. So I have no regrets, none whatever.
Wonderful. And with that, and on that note, friends, Sister Jem and Archdeacon, we actually have with us Sister Emma Thomas. Sister Emma Thomas is one of those foundation members from St. Gabriel's, and she's actually here with us, friends, to share her experience of her interactions with both of these stalwarts. Sister Thomas? I think you would have to unmute. We're not hearing you. Unmute. Excellent.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you? Welcome to
Emma.
Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much. And the 2 celebrants, Archdeacon Winston Thomas and Sister Alvarene Roberts.
Yes.
A wonderful occasion this evening to just be a part of the conversation.
Indeed. So tell us, Sister Thomas, about just interacting with both of them at Glenmuir and at St. Gabriel's.
All right. If I were to start with Archdeacon Thomas first, you know, I've found Archdeacon to be a very organized person, right? A stickler for time, so that if he tells you it's 8 o'clock, he means 8 o'clock, right? And if you were to come after 8 and didn't find him, you know that he had told you 8, right? Writes well, presents well, a very hard worker. In fact, sometimes members of the committee, and I remember myself saying to him, Father, you have to slow down, right? Because he was not only priest at the Maypen St. Gabriel's, but he was Archdeacon, so he was running all over to ensure that all the churches were in order. Great accounting skills. There is no question about that. Knows the canon like how he knows the canons, as though he knows his name, as you know, as he knows his name. A number of persons, I'm sure, depended on his knowledge of the canons to carry out their work. And then he did not only work within our church, but at the diocesan level, of course, many years Secretary of Synod, and served on many boards of the diocese, right? And he also extended himself beyond that to the community. But, you know, just working with Father Thomas and at church, and one of the places that we always meet and really look at the church and its operations is the church committee meetings. And some of those got very fiery, right? Father will recall that I've often said in those meetings that, Father, if something is on the table and I'm not in agreement or I see it another way, I'm going to say, Father, you know, I have to say it as I see it, and I don't agree or I don't, you know, see it that way. And there are many times when and of course he has the ability to put over his points strongly, right? And sometimes I remember putting up my hand, and he would recognize me. And I just said to him, "Father, is that how Jesus would do it?" And yes, and then, you know, everybody really got at ease, and then we would get the things going. But the thing is, Father worked with the cross section of membership, the young, the servers, the AYF, and the adults, the seniors, because he had to go and, of course, deal with the shut-ins, as we have a number of them in our church. But Father has been the kind of priest that a lot of us really look up to, not just in the church, but in the community. I remember there was one event we were having, and I approached our Custos, the Honorable William Shagori, and I said, you know, Custos, so and so and so. And he said to me, "You know, I'm doing it for Winston. I'm doing it for Archdeacon Thomas, because he's somebody I really respect and love, you know." So we've had some really good times with Father. One of the things that a number of us have learned from him is the matter of dealing with accounts, and in terms of the administration of the church. He was very, very professional about that. And the accounting skills, you could not really beat him on that. So he has left a great legacy for us to ride on. He spent 27 years with us, and there were moments of joy just working with him. There was disagreement, I must tell you. There was disagreement, and many times he would reconsider the position that he took. Many times he would hang on and say, "No, I really believe this is the way to go." And sometimes we come around to say, you know, Father is right. Father is right. So a number of children who grew up like the servers and so on, the AYF, who have now moved on, some of them overseas. And I remember when we were dealing with that service, that separation service, that last service we had for him. And I personally approached some of them, and they willingly, and say, "Father Thomas, yes, man." They willingly contribute. So it's a real great legacy that he has left here. And Father, we are not going to we are going to make you proud that you spent 27 years here. We have a new priest now, and we are going to really move from strength to strength, right? So I quite like working with Father. And as I say, in any situation, whether in marriage or whatever, you're going to have disagreements, but it's how you deal. And I think we were able to do that, even though sometimes he was a winner, right? Yes.
And how would the interaction with Sister Jem, because we also have another guest to bring in. So
okay.
Yes,
so Sister Jem, Sister Alvarene Roberts, I remember when she just started with us and the number of things that she implemented. I can remember that she choreographed a number of liturgical dances, and those went well. I remember the days the young people coming in Sunday service and dancing and that kind of thing. She worked well with the Anglican Youth Fellowship, and that I suppose it is based on how she herself transitioned through the ministry from she was young, and so she was able to link with them, right? And not only at church, but you know, she is rather the chaplain of the two schools, Glenmuir Prep and Glenmuir High, right? And then we see Sister Jem at prayer meetings, at Bible studies, right? And sometimes at Bible studies, and so we'll have differences in interpretation of the passages, and sometimes we have the argument going here and there, and Sister Jem will say, well, you know, based on my understanding, this is it. And then sometimes, I remember sometimes I would say to Sister Jem, do you think this is what it could mean? And she would say, you know, Mrs. Thomas, I think you have a point there. Right? So she was always willing to look at other people's position, right? Yeah. And then, of course, Sister Jem, father left us in July, and Sister Jem came to the fore and really did a great job while we were waiting for our priest. So we've had good moments. I've had great moments. I can't remember any moment of antagonism and that sort of thing with Sister Jem.
You had healthy arguments.
Healthy arguments.
Great. That's good. Yes. That's good. Thank you so much, Mrs. Thomas, for sharing. And friends, again, we are adding another twist to this conversation, because we know that there are times when, as clergy, they will need that extra support, not just from their congregation, but from their family. And we are inviting into the conversation now to join us, Mrs., who I would say Archdeacon Thomas. So Mrs. Thomas is with us to join in the conversation. Right. Hi, Mrs. Thomas. I can't keep it up any longer. I just have to say hello, Aunt Jen. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. And how are you?
I am very well, thank you. I really have to just now lay it on the table, Uncle Winston. It's been very good talking to him and Sister Jen. So you are now in the conversation. Tell us, Aunt Jen, about just your journey and supporting Archdeacon as he went through his ministry.
Well, we got married in the 80s after college and UTC. And being in the church was a normal thing for me. I grew up in the church, St. George's Church, Point Hill. I went to church school, and very early there, I was Sunday school teacher. I had a special responsibility also, that of preparing the purificators from about 15, 16. So being a clergy spouse wasn't any great challenge, I should say. I fell into it, and now when I look back at my life as a clergy spouse, I can say it was very good for me, because the Lord has blessed me with many gifts and talents. And I believe it was one way of using my gifts and talents. Had I been in another situation, I don't know if I would have had so many opportunities to share these. And the activities I've been involved in, like the Mothers Union, the Auxiliary, the Sunday School, adopting Vacation Bible School, and so on.
Okay.
So I enjoyed those things. So it was a pleasure to support in those ways. And the other thing that I really enjoyed was entertaining. I really love to entertain guests.
Yes.
I like to cook. I like to put on a special dish and all of that, and to have my guests really happy.
Right.
One thing with us. And another thing, I must let you know that when Winston was made priest, made his cassock.
You did it?
Yes, I made his cassock. The cassock he wore when he was ordained priest, I made it.
Yes.
You know, there was opportunity there. And I was glad for that opportunity. Those days I used to make my dresses as well. We never had any children until maybe 3 years after. But, you know, I enjoyed working in the church, really enjoyed it.
Okay. And we know that after UTC and after being trained, sometimes our priests are sent far and wide, right? And I believe that you were sent all the way to Westmoreland. You're coming from Lloydersville and Point Hill to UTC and then going all the way to Westmoreland to establish a ministry. What were some of the challenges that you encountered as a clergy wife?
Well, I don't think there was any extra challenge being it's just a distance from family.
Yes.
I remember my brothers saying that when they're coming to visit, they would have to get a visa.
Yes. We too.
Yes, and when you people came, you know, it was so far away from relatives and so on. But I believe I made friends very readily.
Yes.
And I got along very well with the members of the church. Some of them I would refer to as sister, my sister Mary or my sister Jane and so on. And I believe I'm flexible when it comes to adjusting to new situations and new environment.
Okay.
Great challenge.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Monique, that Genesis supported my minister very well.
Yes.
When I was in Westmoreland, she was a VP at the school she was at. She left that job to come with me to Maypen to become a classroom teacher. She was able to make any sacrifices for me to work for the church. That's very good.
Yeah. That is indeed to be applauded. Yes.
I must tell you also that after leaving Shortwood, teacher where I was trained initially, I did studies at Western Carolina University, then Howard University, and I got a graduate assistantship to be there. And when I finished, I was offered a graduate assistantship to do the PhD. And when I told my husband about it, and they even said that another situation too was that while I was at Howard, I worked in the International Students Office for 2 years, and they offered me a permanent job. We told Winston about it, and they told him of the benefits he and the family would have if I worked there. I said, no, I can't leave the Diocese of Jamaica. I promised Bishop D'Souza and others that I would not leave. Right. And people felt that I was crazy too, to have something like that, to return to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Said Jamaica is a wonderful place and I would be with my family.
Yes. Oh, wow. So friends, there you have it. Both Archdeacon Uncle Winston and Sister Jem kept their word of coming back to serve the diocese after their time away. We have Reverend Garfield Campbell, who is back with us in the social media room with a few more comments and some questions. Reverend Garfield?
Thank you, Monique. Hello, Sister Janice. It's very good to see you beside Archdeacon. I must say, now, before I read the comments, is that I remember when I just got married, Monique and I just got married, and we came to visit my dear friend Cleverton, who was just starting out as curate in Maypen. I don't know if you remember that experience.
Oh, yeah.
And Archdeacon heard that we were in there and said, no, they can't have the priest in there. We have to go to the rectory for dinner. And I remember having dinner at the rectory, and Sister Jem was there too. And it was a delightful afternoon. So the hospitality I can attest to in that regard. I have a number of comments coming from social media. Violet Hyde I think Sister Jem was talking about someone from Harewood, and she says the person from Harewood was Colin Tenn. That's Tenn.
Okay.
Yes. St. Gabriel's Church Maypen sends their congratulations, the whole congregation, best wishes and gratitude to Archdeacon and Sister Jem for many years of service. Garfield Robinson from St. John the Baptist Church in Colleyville sends congratulations on a job well done. I know Archdeacon will know all of these people from all over the region,
Yeah.
from all these churches that he has had to serve and look after. Norma Walters, of course, famous
Great.
Norma Walters from Brownstown,
Oh,
said,
oh, yes.
says that, she remembered the first time she met Sister Jem and she was very impressed by her joy of life. And she distinctly remembers Sister Jem dancing. That goes to what my dear Emma Thomas was saying, that Sister Jem did her liturgical dance and stuff. So I didn't know Sister Jem was a dancer. I didn't get to see your dance.
I
Many
went to
years.
school of dance. I used to teach dancing, and based on the number of gold medals, I got a scholarship to Jamaica School of Dance.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I continued there while I was at Teachers College.
Oh, great. So, Sean, Father Sean Major Campbell, expressing
Sean.
thankfulness for Archdeacon Thomas's blessed ministry. Long may the seed sown continue to bear fruit for God's kingdom. And Sean also says, so often, many do not realize the sacrifices made by clergy and family. And really, for the sake of this diocese, there are so many stories, and to hear the commitment from Archdeacon and Mrs. Thomas, when opportunities, great opportunities, as we'd say, you give up for the love of God and God's church, and this diocese, I think, has been richly blessed for it. Judith Linton finally sends congratulations and thank you to both Sister Jem and Father Winston. It's a long time you probably don't hear anybody say Father Winston since it become Archdeacon. Or you're a canon as well.
Or with a father, or with a priest, a pastoral person.
That's right. And that's Reverend Judith Atkinson Linton. And those are the comments that we have from social media.
Okay. So there we have it, that just listening to the persons and their comments, they really have they really have deep appreciation for both Sister Jem and also for Archdeacon. And also Archdeacon. Friends, we are at that point when we are going to wrap our conversation. But before we wrap our conversation, I just wanted to ask each of our guests, Archdeacon Thomas and Sister Jem, to just quickly share a word of encouragement to the clergy who are still in active ministry. Just a quick word of encouragement to them, and then we will wrap our conversation.
I will begin by saying to the clergy of that don't forget your vows, that you promise to serve the end of time, stroke sick and thin, and no matter what the problems are, don't forget our Lord's promise, and which you always to the end of time. Never forget that, because no matter what happens, God still guides us, and He would not take us anywhere where His Spirit will not guide and direct us. So hold the faith and preach the doctrine directed by God.
Yes. Thank you very much, Archdeacon Uncle Winston. Sister Jem?
I can ditto what Archdeacon just said, but I also want to add that the challenges that we face working with the church enables us to hold on more to God, because He always comes true. He will never leave us. He will never, ever forsake us. And there are times when sometimes you will feel like giving up. But I challenge all of us to hold on, because there is a reward at the end. It's not that you're working for a reward, because there is so much peace and satisfaction that you feel when you do something, when you see someone's life is transformed, not you, but because of your encouragement and because you're journeying alongside that person. That is enough reward. So I want to say to us that in spite of what we're experiencing, in spite of the fact that you're not getting a lot of money, yes, but the blessings that you will get from God far exceed what you will get in your hand. Because when we're dead, we can't put the money in the casket or the grave.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
So
Right.
I think the best thing we can ever do is just continue to do what we are called to do. You know, there are rich rewards.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Sister Jem. Thank you very much for joining us, Mrs. Emma Thomas, and also to Aunt Jen, who participated in this conversation. Friends, we have come to the end of another conversation. And just to remind you again of our aims to provide a forum for people to have conversations about pertinent issues, to help people to navigate the world from a theological and scripturally informed perspective, and to equip people to pray right. We thank you for joining us, and we always encourage you to continue liking and subscribing and inviting other friends to join in on the conversation. We say thanks to Father Garfield Campbell, to Father Kirk Brown, and also to Lorenzo Lynch. I was your host, Monique Castle. Until next time, keep the ministry going. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.